The United Nations Special Envoy Hans Grunberg concludes a 3-day visit to the Yemeni capital, Sana'a. Houthi militia continues to violate the UN brokered truce in Ma'rib Governorate. In Shabwa, high prices and hard living conditions have locked the people severely. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fouad. The UN Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Grunberg, concluded today a 3-day visit to Sana'a. He met with senior Houthi officials to discuss the ongoing implementation of the different elements of the 2-month truce in Yemen, as well as ways to strengthen, renew, and consolidate their truce. He also met with the UN country team and the International Committee of the Red Cross. Grunberg discussed progress made on the implementation of the truce so far, including the need to sustain the de-escalation of violence in all parts of the country, entry of fuel ships into Hodeidah seaports, efforts to resume a number of flights in and out of Sana'a airport, and opening of roads in Taiz and other governorates. On Wednesday, government forces repelled a violent Houthi attack on government forces positions in the south and west of Ma'rib Governorate. Local sources said the Houthi militia sent huge military reinforcements across the Jawf Desert, including armored vehicles, combat vehicles, and dozens of militants, taking advantage of the absence of coalition aircraft. The sources indicated that the Houthi movements and the intense reinforcements coincided with violent attacks and fierce battles in the southern front of Ma'rib, in addition to firing 2 ballistic missiles at residential neighborhoods in the city. A Houthi militia sniper targeted a woman who was standing in front of her house in Taiz. Sources confirmed that the woman is in a critical condition in a hospital.
في هذا اليوم في أذان الظهر نشأ حريق.
A fire broke out beside the house due to the Houthi bullets. When my wife went out to put out the fire, a sniper fired at her. She is now lying between life and death. The Houthis do not respect a child or a woman. They don't respect the unarmed. They don't distinguish between human and an animal. There is no truce.
A mine explosion led by the terrorist Houthi militia injured a policeman in Hodeidah Governorate, Western Yemen. Identical local sources reported that the explosion of the mine led to serious injuries to the policeman, noting that the explosion occurred when the policeman was inspecting his house, from which he was displaced years ago. A Yemeni human rights coalition has documented that 1,427 abductees have been subjected to various types of physical and psychological torture inside the prisons of the Houthi militia during the past 6 years. The report indicated that 1,427 abductees were subjected to psychological and physical torture, including 101 children, 24 women, and 63 elders, as a result of which some of them suffered total and half paralysis, which others suffered from chronic disabilities. Since Houthis seized power in 2014, Yemenis have been the subject of their lethal killing and torturing machine. Children, women, and elders are victims with no exception. The Fang report has more details on this.
It's not normal. I don't feel like a human being. I can't breathe properly like other human beings. This is what a Yemeni woman said when asked to express her situation in Yemen, as her shaky voice reflected the sadness, hurt, and fear which women in Yemen have come to experience on a daily basis. Women in Yemen from Ma'rib, Taiz, and Sana'a experience violence almost all the time. In Yemen, women are solely responsible for securing food, water, and medicine for their children. In the light of the Houthi militia's theft of humanitarian aid and to use women to serve the war, women in Houthi-controlled areas face various types of violations, including the confiscation of their right to express opinion and demonstrate, as the Houthis have imprisoned hundreds of women in their own prisons and practice various types of torture and violations against them. Although the gender roles shift can provide an opportunity to elevate women's status when she is equipped with educate abilities, women as a result of this transition have been further subjected to violence. The conflict in Yemen has had a horrific impact on all civilians, generally women, and girls have been disproportionately affected. The fighting has left the country's people struggling with the dire economic crisis, damaged infrastructure, and collapsed services. But in addition, women have had to contend with limited mobility due to cultural gender norms. Also, since they are responsible for providing food and care in their homes, they have had to struggle with the challenges of limited access to food, water, sanitation, and healthcare services, which has seen a steady deterioration as the conflict continues. The Yemeni women should be heard, and international organizations should look forward on this issue.
Houthi militia forced employees in the capital Sana'a and areas under their control to participate in sectarian Ramadan evenings. Sources said the Houthi militia have forced the employees since the first day of Ramadan in Sana'a to attend Ramadan evenings and threatened those who fail to participate by exposing themselves to accountability and punishment. The Houthi militia prevented a businessman from distributing aid and food baskets during the month of Ramadan to the poor and needy in the capital Sana'a. Local sources said the Houthi militia prevented a merchant from distributing the alms and aid he provides annually during the month of Ramadan to about 10,000 families in the capital. Shabwa Governorate is witnessing a soaring in prices of basic commodities during the holy month of Ramadan. The Fang Report has more details on this.
At a time when citizens express joy at the improvement in the exchange of the national currency against foreign currencies, in the hope that this would be reflected in the reduction of the prices of goods and commodities that were not affected by this improvement and are still burdening the citizens in Shabwa, which sparked a wave of anger among the citizens.
We were looking forward for what's happening in Yemen now regarding the currency. But it seemed that all what's happening is useless because prices are still high. We don't know what the reason is. Either it's the dollar rise or the Saudi Riyal or the merchants, we really don't know.
On the other hand, the merchants justify their failure to keep pace with the changes in the value of the currency price by reducing the prices on the grounds that the goods in the stores are restricted to them in the national currency when their value drops.
Merchants buy the goods for a high price and they have a huge amount of stock for high prices. They are now afraid to sell because of the unstable currency. So, merchants were forced to shut down their stores.
Fear and worry prevail among traders about being exposed to economic and financial damage and losses in light of their doubts about whether the sudden and rapid improvement in the price of the national currency against other currencies was just a temporary, false decline, especially since it came with no concrete measures taken towards the economic system or the existence of the guarantees to stabilize the price of the national currency and its stability.
حسنت أسعار العملة الوطنية مقابل العملات الأجنبية.
Exchange rate of the rial has improved recently due to the breakthroughs of the political process. In my opinion, the value of rial will settle down, so nothing would justify soaring prices. I call upon traders to consider the dire conditions of citizens.
وآراء لا مبرر.
Lastly, observers believe that there is no point in recovering the value of the national currency unless this is directly reflected in reducing the prices of foodstuffs and consumer goods that directly affect the lives of citizens.
Coming next. In Taiz, despite the war and the blockade, people continue to preserve the rituals of the holy month of Ramadan.
هذا هو محل استهداف الحواث الذين استهدفوا المواطنين وهم نائمين. هذا هو الصاروخ. في الساعة 4 ماشينا الضربة من الحوثيين في المخيم. هذا يعني استشهدوا أولاد عمي، هذا استشهدوا يعني أخواني كلهم يعني شوف يعني الدم في الخيم. الدم في الخيم يعني في كل مكان، يعني رؤوسهم ما التقوش، الرأس ما التقاش، الرأس ما التقاش.
Welcome back. World Health Organization and King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center have joined forces to improve water, sanitation and hygiene at health facilities throughout Yemen's southern region. The program targeted 45 health facilities in 19 governorates at high risk for cholera. The World Health Organization program is also improving safe disposal of medical waste and strengthening water quality in the 33 high-risk areas. David Grassley, humanitarian coordinator, urged donors to increase their support for the aid operation. Grassley urged the donors to immediately disburse pledges and honor commitments made at the recent pledging event. International Organization of Migration provided shelter rehabilitation kits to 660 families in southern Taiz to improve their old shelters. In this context, IOM rehabilitated 50 schools, hospitals, and water and sanitation infrastructure in Yemen last year.
Conflict and a weakened economy in Yemen have left millions of children out of school, parents out of work, patients without reliable healthcare, and families without basic services like safe and clean drinking water. Since the beginning of the war in Yemen, IOM has provided life-saving aid to millions. But we know that if public services are not restored and conflicts resulting from competition on basic services are not resolved, communities affected by the crisis will continue to suffer.
Despite the war and the blockade imposed on Taiz, people are still celebrating Ramadan. They revive Ramadan traditions and bring in delicious dishes and festivals of the holy month. The Fang Report has more details on this.
As soon as worshippers finish performing the afternoon prayer, many of them quickly head towards popular markets for shopping, despite the reduced scale of the festivities in comparison to previous years because of the challenges that the war has posed. Fasting people flock to the shops to buy al-tromba, a vital and popular dessert in the month of Ramadan. in addition to other Ramadan desserts such as al-rawani, al-shawbiyya, and al-mushabbak.
الحلويات الرمضانية مثل الكنافة والطرمبة والشعيبية
Our love for Ramadan desserts such as kunafa, at-rumba, ash-shuaiba and al-mushabbak has been passed down to us from our parents and grandparents. The desserts are vital to our customs and traditions, and we are unaccustomed to fasting without them.
Shufut is a staple in any Yemeni household, particularly during the month of Ramadan. In order to prepare the dish, fasting people buy lahouh or unleavened bread from vendors at the market. They then soak the bread in rye milk or watered down yogurt. Sprinkle a special spice blend atop the concoction, along with cilantro and other greens.
Shafut is the main dish during Ramadan. 2 loaves of bread with some yogurt added, along with spices, make irresistibly delicious dish of shafut. We have nothing but shafut during Ramadan.
Prices have skyrocketed during Ramadan, and those we met have described the high prices as obscene, which dampen the joys of the holy month for some, as they couldn't afford common necessities.
في شهرنا الكريم هذا الغلاء فاحش جدا جدا جدا.
Prices are very high during Ramadan. Everything is more expensive now. Yogurt costs 400 riyals. Citizens are tired of these unaffordable prices, and we hope God guides us through this.
Despite the difficulties that the citizens of Taiz face during Ramadan, they are adapting to the grave reality and spreading joy and kindness.
The 2-month ceasefire is seen to greatly alleviate the suffering of the Yemeni people if promises are delivered. However, shortages of oil derivatives and the high prices of everyday commodities are still in full effect. Houthi rebels have raised prices of oil derivatives despite the entry of oil ships into Hodeidah port. More on the story is within the following report.
The Yemeni Rial suffered a new loss against foreign currencies a day after its recovery. Banking sources in Aden confirmed that the Rial lost again against foreign currencies after the value of buying $1 rose with Monday evening to 948 Rials and the Saudi Rial to 249. A few days ago, with Abu Dhabi and Riyadh announcing $2 billion in support for the Yemeni economy in equal measures, in addition to a $3 billion provided by Saudi Arabia to support oil and other derivative services, the value of buying the $1 suddenly fell in Aden and the liberated Yemeni areas from 1,050 Rials to 760 Rials. The decline coincided with a similar decline in Sana'a, which is under the control of the Houthi militia. Economists attributed this decline to exchange companies' anticipation for large losses after they controlled during the last 3 years the banking sector, with the increase in the number of unauthorized persons in various parts of the country. Experts added that these companies avoided losses behind the devaluation of the foreign currencies for the purpose of withdrawing the largest amount of liquidity from citizens and preserved their cash by selling the currencies to them at a high price. Experts said supporting the central bank with $2 billion isn't the final solution and should be accompanied by comprehensive reforms that include drying up the sources of corruption in the bank and the government alike, and regulating the revenue base of oil and gas exports and other wealth, including port and airport tax revenues. As a result of the deterioration of the value of the Yemeni Rial, prices of various commodities rose and the situation worsened amid international warnings of a famine that threatens millions of Yemenis.
To have more insights on the significance and outcomes of the special envoy's first visit to Sana'a, joining me now from Abu Dhabi, Dr. Nada El-Tahir, Senior Foreign Reporter at the National News. Thank you very much, Nada, for being with us. And if we can start from the visit itself, Special Envoy Hans Grunberg took office almost 7 months ago. Since then, Houthis have always refused to receive him in the capital Sana'a. In your opinion, what made them agree on the visit this time?
number of factors involved to the visit. As we know, the truce was made possible. And this is the first truce for the first time in the 6-year war. And that truce was a show of goodwill from both sides. The truce itself contained two very important factors, which is the imminent reopening of Sana'a airport, which millions of Yemenis are looking forward to, and the allowance of fuel imports through the port of Hodeidah, which has already brought down the cost of fuel. And these two factors are very important for the Houthi side. Since the announcement of the truce, to be honest, it was a matter of time before Mr. Grunberg was to be setting into Sana'a for talks with high-ranking Houthi officials after talks in Muscat with the Houthi negotiating team. So it's a very promising sign, and it's something that is long overdue and should have happened a long time ago, but it's good that it's happening now at a time when Yemen is making headlines for all the right reasons.
Okay, so in terms of the outcome of the visit, Special Envoy said that during press conference in Sana'a airport today that he discussed with the Houthi leadership ways to consolidate and extend the truce. Do you think this is possible amid reports of truce violations by Houthi militia?
Well, I think the entire world is looking very closely at this truce and whether it's going to hold. Violations have been reported and have been duly noted and monitored now and recorded by the UN. However, the truce largely holds for the time being. I think that the stakes are too high for this truce not to at least complete its 2-month cycle, if not even further. And during this opportunity, which Mr. Grunberg said is a time for the Yemenis to breathe, there are massive efforts underway to make sure that the truce itself is holding, extending, and that all of the positive efforts that are being made, whether on the front of the Sana'a airport, the Hodeidah port, the Ta'az reopening of roads, or the FSO Safar, I think there are lots of files here that are being worked on. And so I think that this truce is allowing for all those files to be worked on, and the stakes are too high for this truce not to hold. And if the Houthis do not uphold their end of the deal, then I think that they will be held very much accountable. The UN has said that they are going to work on mechanisms with which to help both parties coordinate, and the UN have placed the responsibility squarely on the warring parties to uphold the truce. So I think with the exception of a few violations, the truce is holding, and it will hopefully continue to hold so long as the climate so allows it. And so far, this has been the case.
Okay, so last point, if you may, since you are based in the United Arab Emirates, Anwar Gergesh, diplomatic advisor to the UAE president, met with David Grassley and Tim Lenderking on Yemen. Would you elaborate on the focus of their meeting?
Well, Mr. Lenderking and Mr. Grassley have both been in Saudi Arabia prior to their arrival here to the UAE. And they have been speaking not only about the political climate in Yemen and the Presidential Council, but Mr. Grassley told me yesterday during his visit that the Safar file is the one that is actually one of his main purposes of this Gulf tour, so to speak. Mr. Lenderking has now gone on to Kuwait. The GCC has put all of its efforts behind supporting the Safar's operation, and Mr. Grassley himself is in the region to mobilize the $80 million required to place a temporary ship to offload the 1.1 million barrels of oil on the Safar to a temporary ship until a more long-term solution takes place in 18 months. So that's the purpose of Mr. Grassley's visit, and then a donor conference is going to be held in the Netherlands in May. As you know, they're working against the clock here, so making these rounds and talking to all these high-level officials is very important, not only for the Safar, but also for the political process as a whole, and surely for the legitimacy and the continued legitimacy of the Presidential Council.
Okay, yeah, I'm afraid, Nada, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now with a reminder of the main headlines. The United Nations Special Envoy Hans Grunberg concludes a 3-day visit to the Yemeni capital, Sana'a. Houthi militia continues to violate the UN brokered truce in Ma'rib Governorate. In Shabwa, high prices and hard living conditions have blocked people in Yemen. This is the end of the news. It was Rushan Fouet. Thank you for watching.